Hello, everybody. I'm Lori Hines with Just Among Friends. Welcome to another episode where we host guest speakers that align with our mission, which is to cultivate hearts to align with the Jewish people and the land of Israel. I'm joined by co-host Mike Isley with Texans for Israel and Ann Stacy with Texans for a Safe Israel. Today, our speakers are some very dear friends of ours, Jeremy Gimpel and Ari Abramowitz with the Fellowship and the Land of Israel Network, and also founders of the incredible magical place, the Arugot Farms in the Judean Mountains in Israel. Welcome, Jeremy and Ari.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you so much. Good to see you, Mike. Good to see you, Ann, and good to see all of you out there.
Amen.
Yeah, we're excited to have you guys. So, there's a lot we want to talk about, but we have about 30 minutes, so we probably won't get to all of it. But I want to start with you guys have a long history of, working with Christians, and that's what we do here at Just Among Friends. It's Christians and Jews working together to really, what I was saying just a second ago, to cultivate hearts. And if people knew, hopefully they will after this, what you guys are doing is so incredible to not just Christians or Jews, but to everybody, anybody who's, a person of faith. So I want to talk about what you're doing in a minute, but let's start, just briefly tell us about your history. How did you guys start working? You're Orthodox Jews. How did y'all start working with Christians?
That's really a good question. Well, my grandfather walked from Russia to Israel in 1916 when he was only 15 years old. And my father was born in Israel. And when he finished his IDF service, he got on the last ferry to ever leave Israel to arrive in the United States to try to become a doctor. At that time, there was only one medical school in Israel, and he didn't have the grades to get in. And his mother wanted him to be a doctor. I went to law school. In my family, you're either a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure. That's the way it works. And so, his mother wanted him to be a doctor. And so at that time, he only had $500 in his pocket and not a lot of words of English. And he bought the Webster's Guide to College Campuses in America. And he had one criteria. He looked for the cheapest college in the United States. And in fact, he found a Baptist Bible college outside Alexandria, Louisiana. That was the cheapest college in America in 1960. So he got on a Greyhound bus, knocked on their door and said, "Hey, I've come from Israel and I'd like to attend your college." And he was all alone in America. He had no friends, he had no family, and it was random Christians in the middle of America in a little town. Alexandria is a pretty small city outside of Alexandria, Louisiana. For a Jew in 1960 to get on a boat and end up in a Baptist Bible college outside Alexandria, Louisiana, that's just never happened before. That will never happen again. But the Christians there, they were just living by the principles of the Bible, to be kind to the stranger, to be kind to the Jewish people, to bless Israel. And they brought my father in, and they loved my father, and they helped him when no one else did. He was all alone, and they really provided him such a support system. They saw it as a blessing to their institution that somehow this Jew from Israel arrived at their door. And it's amazing to think about that, because I grew up with such warm feelings towards Christians, even though I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish home. And I mean, to say the blunt, honest truth, in the Orthodox Jewish educational system, all we learn about in our history is Christian persecution. They're the Crusades and the Inquisition and the Holocaust and Hitler preaching with the Pope behind him. And even until today, when I see a cross, I don't have positive feelings there. There's nothing there's a sort of an ingrained 2,000-year bad feeling that emerges. But because I grew up with this personal story of my father, that it was Christians living by the principles of the Bible, without those Christians even understanding what they were doing, they were laying the stones of the heart that I now have for the Christian world. And so imagine the random act of kindness decades ago, before I was even born, the intergenerational impact that people can have by just spreading love into the world. And I think that really was the beginning of my introduction the introduction before I was born, that there are another faith group that are outside of the Jewish world that still live by the principles of the Bible, that believe in God, that not only just kind of have a certain belief system, but it's practiced in action, that the way that they would treat others in the world reflects God's love in the world. And so I guess from that place, my heart was just always open. And then the opportunities came for Ari and I to teach different tourist groups that would come to Israel. And we hosted a radio show called A Light Unto the Nations years and years ago. And when you broadcast on the internet or on the radio or on television, you never know. It sort of has wings that can just go around. And all of a sudden we were introduced to so many Christians from all over the world.
A guy named Mike Isley. Mike Isley was he was a very, very early adopter of Ari and Jeremy. We were actually writing for the Jerusalem Post, and he read the article and he reached out to us, and that was like a big inlet, one of our primary ones into the Christian world. For me, it's not as long of a story as with Jeremy. It's a little bit more of a mixed bag. I'm fourth generation Texan. So I grew up in Texas. So did my mother and her mother. So there's a lot of Christians there. And I did experience a little bit of anti-Semitism, but the majority of my interaction with Christians, I remember Jeremy came on a speaking tour to Houston with me once, and we were pulled over by a policeman. And he said, "Where are y'all from? You're going really fast." And I said, "We're from Texas. We're from Israel." He said, "You're from Israel?" I said, "Yeah, this is my commander in the army." He said, "The Israeli army are from Israel? Listen, boys, don't go too fast. Y'all go ahead now." And there was just so much love for Jews. And I found that nobody is neutral about Jews. And there's a movement within Christianity that is, to me, in my eyes, very thirsty and pure, thirsty for truth and connection and authenticity and wanting a real brotherhood, a real friendship. And so we started teaching very early on, and a lot of Jews were like, "Who are these guys?" But the Christians were wanting to learn from us, wanting to hear from us. And although, listen, Jeremy, he doesn't like to say it because he's a humble guy, but he's a rabbi. We're Jews and we're rabbis. And so clearly there are parts of Christianity that we believe are wrong, are false. That's true. But, when 10 years from now, let's say when I look back at my life, the way I thought 10 years ago, I see that half of the way I understood God was wrong. And I hope that 10 years from now, I'll understand that half of the way I understand God right now is wrong. And if we're coming to God with a humble heart of understanding that none of us really fully get it, and we're here to learn from each other and with each other, well, I think that's a blessed thing. That's where the blessing comes, when we come with humility as brothers. And after thousands of years of enemies and hatred, now there's actually love and brotherhood. And to me, that's just another sign of redemptive times that we live in.
I love what you both said. First of all, Jeremy, I've never heard that story about your father. I knew he came to America to get his degree. I didn't know this story. That's so special, so unique. And Ari, what you just said, it's like it's a breath of fresh air. It's like it's so life-giving, the whole thought that you just shared with us. So thank you for that. My takeaway from that is, if we could just learn not to be so death gripped to what we think is right, be open to new ideas, like you were saying, and we grow. And so I personally, and my friends here, Ann and Mike, we feel that way every time we listen to you guys every Sunday morning when we listen to you in the fellowship. Our minds are just open, our hearts are open. It's just beautiful. And so I appreciate what you said personally. Okay, so let's see. You guys, I know, Jeremy, you and your family were recently in the States on a tour, speaking and bringing a message from Israel to people here in the States. I think you and your family may be coming sometime in the near future as well, hopefully. Tell us about what you were doing here in the States, Jeremy. What were you speaking about?
I didn't know what I was speaking about until I got there. But I knew that I was called to the United States because, more than a year ago, Ari and I started the Land of Israel Fellowship. And all of a sudden, there were all of these families from all over the world, but mostly in the United States. I mean, today there's 45 countries that are represented in the fellowship, but about half of the fellowship is in the United States. And there are people, some that I know, but most of them I'd never met before. And there are these virtual realities that are somewhere in the United States. And I said, Tehila, we should really go to the United States and ask people in the fellowship, would they want to host events and introduce us to more people and meet these people? And all of a sudden, people that were just faces on Zoom came out with all of their families, and we saw, oh, it's not hundreds of people on Zoom, it's thousands of people, because each family has their own children. These are real families that are building up the next generation of believers in the world. And so our purpose really was just to meet everyone, shake their hand, hug them, make relationships with them, take what we've done virtually and then bring it into the physical. And we encountered, I don't know what else to call them other than God's people, the cream of the crop of humanity, the most beautiful people that we've ever met, hearts of gold everywhere we went. People hosted us and blessed us and just treated us the most hospitable acceptance we've ever experienced in our lives. It feels like we had met long lost friends that we had never met before. And so I think ultimately, God's plan is unfolding in the world, and it's unfolding in a way that none of us could have ever expected. I don't think that anyone expected a global pandemic to shake things around and that cities would be on fire and presidents would be shifted and new prime ministers would be lifted in Israel. And everything is sort of happening in a way that no one expected. And of course, that's exactly the way it's supposed to happen, in a way that no one expects, so that everyone can finally become a little bit more humble with all of their predictions of the future. But what happens, we know, is that the center stage of God's plan is the land of Israel. The center stage of redemption is Jerusalem. And so many people, they love God and they want to raise godly children. But our hope was that in meeting us, just allowing them to align with Israel, connect with Israel, keep their prayers directed towards Israel, because God's plan, the center of it all, happens here in this land. And so to give people that personal connection and that personal, it's like when you come in Israel, you're like filled with a certain spirit. It's a certain energy. You walk off the plane, you immediately feel it. God's presence dwells here. And so then to bring that energy and that presence and then share it with as many people as we can, to plug them in. I think that was really the goal. And I think we did it. And we've made now what seemed to feel like soul friends, like soul brothers and sisters. Just the most amazing experience I've ever had was this last summer trip in America.
I'll tell you, when we came out here originally, we were sent out here for political reasons, for security reasons. This area that we're in is so critical for the safety and security of Israel. But after being here for a few weeks, I realized that it's got nothing to do with any of that. I'll tell you that what I try to explain, for me, it was like I felt like I was a fish that had been flopping around on the riverbank, gasping for air and slowly dying. And a fish has a short memory span, so it thinks this is what it is to be a fish. This is the life of a fish. And then someone comes and puts it back in the water and says, oh, this is what it is to be a fish. For me, coming out here is like, this is what it is to be a Jew. To live here in Judea is so authentic and real, and a part of my soul was lit up. And that's what God says, that when he returns us back to the land, there will be a circumcision of our hearts. And I have felt a connection with God out here, just living and breathing in this land like it's hard to explain. So when we teach in the fellowship, we're not just teaching Torah from the land of Israel, but we're teaching Torah of the land of Israel. There's a different Torah that is coming forth. And although Jeremy and I are the least of our brethren, the reason I think he's uncomfortable with going by the title rabbi is the same reason I am. Because out here in Judea, we are the least of the great, incredible spiritual luminaries living here. But nonetheless, God has made his decision, and we are so honored to be on some level able to share in this fellowship with these people around the world who I just am so strengthened by and inspired by. And I feel often that they really just, not they, but also you, Lord, you all are holding us up and strengthening us and encouraging us and saying, please keep teaching us. And we feel like we're also learning so much from all of you.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you for those words. There's so much to talk about with just those two topics, the fellowship and the land itself where y'all live, which is called the Arugot Farms. And we want to make sure that we give that information here in a second. But let me just speak from my heart, because I have been to your place, and I'm telling you, it is one of my most unique experiences of going to Israel over the many trips I've taken. One of the other highlights of a trip is feeding Holocaust survivors. One time we went, but going to your farm, and it was a fluke. It was not on the itinerary. A mutual friend in Jerusalem said, "You've got to make time to go visit Jeremy and Ari's farm." I thought, a farm? I'm in Texas. I've seen farms. It's okay. No, you got to go. So of course, my Jewish mother friend, her ways, she was pretty bossy. I was like, okay, I'm going. And so I went, and I'm telling you, I'll never be the same. My heart was left there. It's the most inspiring place I've ever seen. And then I know we got to plant a vineyard that day that we were there. And I mean, so it's so special to go where you're talking about. So what you just said, that you guys are teaching of the land, it is so true. Just last Sunday, the sheep, the whole, talking about the sheep, what's going on with the sheep there on your farm. That is so amazing. That is so amazing. And I can't give it justice in this amount of few minutes here, but I hope people will go back and watch the recording of last Sunday. Ann and Mike, I know you want to say something. Please chime in, because there's a lot to talk about here.
Well, just yesterday, I hosted a birthday lunch, and I have to go back and apologize. I've thought about it this morning, because I know I probably insulted some at the birthday lunch I hosted, but I said I would rather fellowship with the Orthodox Jews than the Christians. So I have to go back and sort of work on that. But because the people that I know, the ones I'm talking about, are primarily from Judea and Samaria, and they put their lives on the line. And I really believe they are not only pioneers, but they're heroes and heroines. And I just can't get enough of being around them. So yes, I want to fellowship with my Christian brothers and sisters, but I said too much.
Well,
How was that received, Ann?
And that's a good word. Ari and Jeremy, I just want to tell you how much you've changed our lives. And just like Ann, I wouldn't miss Sunday morning for all the world, for all the money in the world, because someone asked me, where do you go to church now? And, I helped start a mega church here in Amarillo that years ago, and I don't go anymore because I go to y'all's fellowship. So, and I think all of us in the fellowship, we're just learning so much, and, we just can't thank you enough for all you do. And I hope we pray for you, and you know what I'm saying. We have begun to think that the farm, of course, the farm is yours, but we all have, it's our farm, and we want to protect you, and so we pray, but everything you're doing is just amazing. So thank you, brothers. We love you.
Yes, true. So let's take a minute here, and I'm going to come back to another question, but let's take a minute and tell people, more practically speaking, if you had to define what the fellowship is in practical terms, what is it? Is it we keep saying Sunday, I heard the word Zoom. What is the fellowship for those who are watching this recording?
Well, so the fellowship was started right, I guess, after Corona really struck the world, and all flights to Israel were cut off, and so many people that loved Israel couldn't come. And so
yes,
what we thought of was, if we can't allow people to come here and experience the magic of the mountains of Judea, and the mountains where King David wrote most of the book of Psalms, let's try to bring this spirit from here to the world. And at the beginning, I sort of imagined it being an online seminar. I didn't know what else to call it. I said, all right, it'll be Sunday mornings, and we'll be teaching from the Torah. We'll be teaching about the feasts. We'll be teaching about prayer. And it'll just be like a teaching seminar that we'll do on Zoom. But what started off as an online seminar became a global movement of believers from all different backgrounds. We have 2 Catholic nuns, pastors, rabbis, a couple of Buddhists, 3 Muslims, all of these different people. From how do you even get so many people in the same, how are we all together, praying together? What's going on here? It's what started off in my mind as an online seminar has turned into an online community of believers from all different backgrounds that are seeking after God, that are trying to draw closer to Israel, that want a deeper understanding of the Bible, that love the land. And somehow it's as if the Arugot Farm is like this spiritual magnet. I don't know how else to call it. That's pulling people closer and closer and closer. It's like the spirit of King David rests in these mountains, and that spirit is somehow calling souls from Tanzania and from Holland and from South Africa and from Texas and Canada and Hawaii and New Zealand. And we're just on this mountain, and somehow they're just being pulled and connected deeper and deeper into the spirit of these mountains, deeper and deeper into the meaning of the Torah, deeper and deeper into a relationship with Israel. And so it's much more than just an online Sunday session now. It's some sort of move in the world. I don't know what else to call it.
And the truth is, it's not really primarily even about the ideas. I think that the ideas and the teachings are secondary. They're a close second, but the real beauty of it is the relationships.
Oh,
it's
yes.
the friendships, it's the connections
Amen.
that I see. And that's why I'm always thinking how to build those even more. Jeremy and I can't tell you how much we talk, we dream, we fantasize about the day where Corona is removed from the world and we're all able to come together here for not a virtual fellowship, but a real life fellowship here at the Arugot Farms, here in the land of Israel, where we can spend more than an hour a week together, but actually connect with each other in a real personal way. So that's what I think it's really about. The deepest beauty of it is more than just the ideas. It's the hearts and the souls that are connecting.
Wow. Yes, yes, yes. I love all this. We often talk, Ian and I and Mike joke with each other that, what we're doing with our Orthodox friends, feels like a family reunion of some sort. Like it's like an emerging family reunion because, man, we have hosted some amazing people like yourselves, and I just feel like, Ian, I can't get enough of it either. And so maybe what you guys are doing is the big picture of bringing people together, and somehow it's all gonna, collide into one massive gathering, our family reunion in Jerusalem one day. Wouldn't that be amazing? Well, we'll start your.
Oh my goodness, that would be the dream. That is the dream. I have a dream that one day when this Corona thing just disappears, just a tidal wave, a tsunami of people from all over the world come together in one moment, in one time, in one place. I think that maybe that's what we're all being prepared for.
Yeah, the prophet Zechariah says, "V'nilvu goyim rabim el Hashem b'yom hahu v'hayu li la'am." If the prophet Zechariah didn't say it, I wouldn't have the audacity to say it. But he said that in those days, the righteous of the nations will come together. V'nilvu goyim rabim el Hashem to the God of Israel, b'yom hahu v'hayu li la'am, and they will be for me as a nation.
Yeah.
That's what he says. They will be for me as a nation.
Wow.
But a lot of the old definitions and boxes in our head are just coming down, and something new, something truly new is happening under the sun.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is so amazing too. I mean, I used, of course, before Corona, I never heard of Zoom, right? And then once you're a year into the Zoom life, you're sick of Zoom. But your Zoom is one I will not miss. I mean, I not get enough of it. So amazing. I have to say that within Christianity, there is a thought that, or I guess a belief held as far as when the Messiah comes, that Christians or people, believers, are going to be taken up to the clouds, up into a level of heaven. And I don't believe that. I believe, believers in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are going to be brought to Jerusalem. I may be wrong, like you said, or maybe in 10 years I'll think something different, but right now that's what I think. And so I was talking to a Christian friend recently, and she said, I'm just ready for the Messiah to come and get rid of all this chaos so I can go up to heaven. I said, well, have a great trip, but I'm going to Jerusalem.
Amen.
We were joking, of course, but anyway, that's what made me think of that conversation. You
You
know,
know, the truth is, it's not all that far away in the sense that sometimes I think to myself, I can't wait for the Messiah to come so heaven can come down to earth.
oh,
That's a little bit
Amen.
more
Better.
of what we're.
Good
Ah,
word.
right.
the whole thing. You guys think so differently. Like you put the positive on it, and I love that. It's just so good. It's so good. Okay, Arugot Farm. Let's go back to the actual physical place where you guys live. So I want you to tell us about what you're doing there, and if you can, briefly, because people need to know about this place. I mean, I've been there and I was completely smitten. It's a magical place. But you guys can see that. So if I was looking at a map of Israel, for people who don't really quite know where this is at, you're south of Jerusalem, is that right? And you're pretty close to the Dead Sea. Can you tell us more about the farm and what you're doing?
Yeah, so first to understand where we are. So we're southeast of Jerusalem, and the Arugot Farm is the last mountains of the Judean Mountains before the Judean Desert. And then after the Judea Desert, from our mountain here, we can see all the way down to the Dead Sea, which is, so from one of the highest mountains in Israel, it goes down to the lowest place on the planet. So there are huge cliffs and valleys that are just breathtaking. The views are mystifying. They're intoxicating. But aside from the natural beauty of this place, this is the place where David would take his sheep as a young lad. We're 15 minutes outside of Bethlehem. And according to the Judean tradition, most of the book of Psalms was written before David became king, and were written right out here in these mountains. Now, if you think about that, the book of Psalms is the book that taught the whole world how to pray. If you're a Catholic in Brazil, or a Protestant in Germany, or an evangelical Christian in Texas, or a Jew in Jerusalem, when someone wants to pray, they open up the book of Psalms, and King David taught us all how to pray. Those prayers came into the world in these mountains.
Let me just say something really quick. I just want to show you. I don't know if this works, if you can see.
Yes. Look at that. Look at
Unbelievable.
that. Oh my
That's
goodness.
the Dead Sea right there. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh my gosh, yes, in the distance. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Beautiful. Oh
So
man.
the time that this place is mentioned in the Bible is after David kills Goliath. So the first king of Israel, King Saul, becomes insanely jealous of David and tries to kill him. And it says that David ran into the wilderness and into the mountains of Ziph. Arugot is right at the border of the mountains of Ziph. And it's right here that King David assembled his mighty men. Now, those mighty men, those were his elite commando soldiers for the rest of his career. So in some ways, David's leadership was established here. The army of Israel was actually established here in these mountains before David became king. Now imagine this amazing thing that's unfolded. Ari and I came here with a dream to make a center that would be a house of prayer for all nations. That would be a place for music and art and spirituality. And all of a sudden, after we got here and we started learning the geography and connecting it to the Bible, we discovered, oh my goodness, this is where music and prayer was brought into the world in the book of Psalms. But not only that, King David's men, when you read the book of Chronicles, so many of them were not Jews. The original men that joined David that established the armies of Israel, Uriah the Hittite, that's Bathsheba's husband. He wasn't a Jew. He's a Hittite. So many of the people that joined David weren't just Jews, but they were the righteous among the nations that came and joined the king. He's the leader of Israel. They're aligning themselves with Israel. So it's some sort of almost like a prophetic template or a map that we're somehow living out in this beautiful place that's unfolding before our very eyes.
Would you believe that I've never heard that before?
I haven't either.
I've never heard Jennifer say that. But I'll tell you, it's really true what he said, because what our mission out here really is at the core is to return Judea back to its essence of being a spiritual capital, an international destination for spirituality and transcendence. And that's not just for the Christian world, for the non-Jewish world, but for the Jewish world. Jews come out here not only from around America and around the world, but from within the land of Israel. And they come here from Tel Aviv and from Netanya, and they stand out here and they're looking around. They say, are we in the Golan Heights? Where is this place? This is Judea. This is Judea. And when a Jew returns to Judea, our indigenous land that we're from, we're made from this earth. So something just happens to us. The reason Jews called Jews is because we're from Judea, right? Mordechai was a Jew, but he was from the tribe of Benjamin. So why was he called Mordechai HaYehudi? Because he was Nigla from Yehuda. He was exiled from Judea. So this is who we are. So when we return, we're not just returning to our land, but we're returning to our essence. And when we do that, it brings light not only to the nation of Israel, but to the entire world. So our goal out here is to return Judea to being an international destination for spirituality and transcendence.
Amazing. Something in my own heart has happened since we've started doing these interviews with our Jewish friends. And that is the ones that we speak to, like yourselves, that are in Judea, like Natalie Sapinski, and there was a couple others that we've talked with. When you guys describe and show us pictures of where y'all live and what happens in those places, I cannot tell you how bad I want to pack my bags and go live there. I want to get rid of all the chaos, this crazy rat race, and go live and do it. I mean, it's simple, it's spiritual, it's beautiful, it's life-giving. Like, y'all have a shepherdess that lives out there, a young girl who is a shepherdess. Who does that? That's so beautiful. And I've seen the responses from some of the Jewish people, like you're talking about, that come to y'all, to your farm from Tel Aviv. I was reading a post the other day about from Hillel Fuld, and he was like,
well, Lori,
unbelievable.
Lori, can I say something real quick?
Yes.
As long as I've known Jeremy and Ari, it was always a light into the nations. And I truly, just listening to this, my life has been changed because of my two brothers, but I get it now. And I think even you're ministering to Jews and Gentiles and the people of the world, because I do think the Messiah is knocking on the door, and Jeremy and Ari get that, and they're teaching us to prepare.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you guys, because I could go on for years talking about this, but thank you, because you're a forerunner, like, and I say this in all respect, like a prophet, to say, wake up. And we're waking up, and I'm awake. I just want to thank y'all. So thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you, Mike.
Too. Yes. Anne, do you want to add to that? Do you have anything else?
Oh, well, it's an honor and a privilege. I really do count it as a high privilege to know these two people.
Yes, myself included. Same. You guys are doing amazing work. It is life-changing work. You are literally changing the world. And in this day and time, there's nothing else that we need more than what you're doing. So please keep it up. Please don't quit. Whatever it takes, keep this going, because we have no intention of not tuning in every Sunday. How can people that don't know about this, how can they find information about this fellowship that has changed our lives and that we want them to join us?
They can go to thelandofisrael.com, and that's where you'll find all the information about the Land of Israel Fellowship right there.
Okay.
I just want to say, Lori and Ann and Mike, we love you guys a lot. Really, this is a perfect example. We have had, both of us, a very exhausting day, an exhausting week. And I came into this interview exhausted, and I'm exiting this interview filled with energy and life. And that's from you guys.
Yeah.
Really. You really are life-giving and energizing and encouraging, and we're really grateful, and we love you a lot.
Oh, thank you. You're so
Hey, Lori.
Yeah.
I just want, one of these days, Ari and Jeremy, if you see 3 parachutes going over the farm and drop from somewhere, we're going to figure some way out to get out of here and come and be with y'all. So just be prepared.
We won't shoot them out of the sky. Now we know.
We'll have a Texas flag, so you know it's us. Well, I know you guys are exhausted. Had a crazy week, so we do want to wrap up. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us here on Just Among Friends. We are all friends, and it's a wonderful place to be on this journey with you guys. Thank you for all that you do. Amen. We love you guys. And we wish you a good Yom Kippur, and then a very happy Sukkot as you the upcoming days are coming soon, I guess tomorrow. So anyway, with all of that said, thank you so much. For you guys that are, anybody watching this recording, please go to thelandofisrael.com and find out information on how you can join us at the fellowship on Sunday mornings. Thanks everybody for joining us here. I'm Lori Hines. I'm Just Among Friends. Take care. Bye-bye.
May you be sealed in the book of life.
Oh,
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Bye.
Bye.